it tends to give results in predictable ratios. This will apply in the most of the activities that affect an organization, including retention and turnover. Sometimes leaders can operate in a way likened to throwing mud on the wall and then hoping some would stick. This is because there may be no clear way of telling who will leave next or what results are likely to produce, except through study and analysis of our history. By studying what we have always done and what we have always achieved, it is possible to predict what results we can expect from our current activities. That helped me. When people leave your team, sometimes it is not because of what you have done or not done. They have their own reasons. Well, you might be the reason for the majority to quit, but obviously there are those who will not leave because of you. In order to increase your results, you may want to increase your process. This may include increasing the activities that lead to results like prospecting, presentation, networking, and continually learning what can be done better. Second, principles of incentives. Through incentives, you may realize some improvement in productivity, as some of the members in the team will almost always run for the incentives. It is important, however, to know what extent an incentive can be used. Not long ago, I had a chance to discuss with the bank manager about their card machines at the gas filling station within the country. She said that they had started giving some incentives to boost the market, and as soon other banks got into the habit, which then resulted into other competition altogether. You give this amount and other guys come with that amount. At the end, the small incentive became unsustainable. Incentives can be abused. I have been a victim of this in one of my business. The other possible negative consequences is that some team members who may feel that they have no chance might be demotivated, and it can be very costly. Design and use it carefully. It is a double-edged sword.
Okay, the principle of large numbers. If we sow more, we reap more. Conversely, if we sow less, we reap less. We therefore reap what we sow. More for more, less for less. I remember a mathematical problem we used to solve in school that stated something like 2 people can till a particular piece of land in 5 days. How many more people will be required to do twice as much in 1 day? This can show that there's some advantage in numbers with careful planning. This is one of the principles that salespeople use. It dictates that if you see more prospects, you may end up selling more. You make up in numbers what you lack in skill. But there are other ways of looking at it within the team. The size of the team determines how much to do with its efficiency. Assuming all other factors remain constant, with proper arrangement and leadership, we can expand the team in order to achieve more for our clients and ourselves. A good example would be air transport. If we have been doing 3 weekly flights to a particular destination, then it means that with more demand, we can increase to 5 flights a week. This implies a larger team. This type of arrangement, just as incentives, must be done strategically, lest you end up retrenching. I always like result-based rewards or hybrid as opposed to presence-based. Instead of paying people for just being around, reporting on time and leaving on time, why not pay them according to what they did and results they achieved? It empowers them better. For volunteer organizations, recognition of every milestone is quite an effective idea. As a matter of fact, people love recognition more than money. You will be surprised.
Thank you very much. Let's have reflections on the same. I love these principles, and it's recommended that every leader will always somewhat find them very useful, because if you forget, about these principles, somewhat you are going to run into trouble at some point, one or another. And I've seen this more so with the managers. Yes, we can, for example, the first principle where we are talking about averages. If we cannot predict results, if we do not know our people, we will not be in a better place to predict our results, and we will not be able to know their output. Because like we learned last week, people are very different. They are 30%, they are 10%, they are 60% people, and they are 100% people. But how do you know this? By studying the averages, by studying the statistics. And if we check incentives, for example, you realize that enough people abuse incentives. The best way incentives have worked for me more so is when it is individualized, you see. But if you give it blanketly, you'll realize that a few people will run for it, others won't. Others will give up from the starting point because they feel like either it's too far away from them or it was not designed well for them. So even this incentive idea needs to be individualized, to be personalized in order that it may be able to work. Otherwise, most times you may end up with something else that will not increase the productivity as you may wish. And you've also seen that some organizations, like right now, from the time COVID started, people have gone to this ideology of result-based. Throughout my life in business, I've learned that you do not need to reward people based on presence. You see that they logged in the morning, they are logging logging out in the evening. By the end of the day, they may not have done anything much. But if you reward based on output, then you are also giving people an opportunity to grow, to do better. And they can even do the task in less time and they end up doing other things elsewhere. Otherwise, let's have reactions from the floor.
May I go first?
Yes, go ahead, John.
I fully agree with you on the issue of rewarding based on output and not presence. I think just recently, even in our organizations, we had that argument. And when our MD was insisting on the issue of insisting that people have to log in and log out, and that is when I also brought up the issue that in my thinking, if we give people an opportunity, because I realized again that when you again force people that you have to log in at a certain time, say 7, because ordinarily people log in at 8 and leave at 5. And if you now force people to log in, say at 7, and it was strange that before then, by 7, you'll find the office is actually full. But when now we asked guys that now people have to log in at 7 so that we achieve more, you find a lot of resistance. And that is why I agree with you that sometimes there are more rewards which are not necessarily money. And which sometimes you need to look at carefully and see that how do you use the incentives at your disposal to ensure that you get the best output from each and everyone, because as you say, people are all different, and you evaluate on a case-by-case basis. And I think some trials sometimes tend to show that the direction you take is based on evaluation of people, so that you determine there are those who will be very happy to show a lot of presence, but the output will be minimal. So I tend to agree on that part, that if rewards are based on output compared to being based on the presence, then I think more, as a leader, you will tend to achieve more. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, John. This is something that is very, very key, and more so even people in sales and generally productivity. And this works even for construction firms. I was seeing it when we are running construction. If we base it on presence, the workers will come in early, they log in, then they wait for tea. And at some point, they take a break, going to do their smoking and all sorts of things. By the end of the day, they were fully present. And some of the mentees I've worked with, usually you hear that the workers were there, but what is the output? There is no output because they come in early, they pretend to work, and by the end of the day, you hear that, oh, I have some call, let me make this call. I had one who told me at one point that he wants to go and send some money home, some using M-Pesa, so he's got to load it and asked for a short break. He went and came in the afternoon after several hours, and he was drunk. So that presence-based just doesn't work, and it doesn't motivate. Now, you talked about something very interesting. You cannot force people. You cannot force people to do things, by the way. You cannot force them to produce results. It just doesn't work. They will pretend to work, and you will pretend to pay them, as they say. So you must make people want to do it, as opposed to forcing them to do it. Yes, there is this story in Del Carnegie's book, How to Make Friends and Influence People, and it talks about the contest between the wind and the sun, about who would make an old man remove his jacket faster. So they agreed to the contest, and the wind started blowing strongly, pulling, and as strong as it became, the old man held tightly to his coat. And by the end of the day, the wind gave up. And then the sun came in, and the book says, just smiled on the old man, increased the heat a bit, and then the guy removed his coat, his jacket. So it's good to know that we cannot force people to do things the way we want them, but we can find a way to make them want to do it. And that is what we are supposed to find as leaders, how to make them want to do it. That is very important for us. Yes, thank you very much. Next person, Kevin, I know you deal with salespeople. What's your take on this?
OPP, I've never tried this issue of incentives in my team. So for me, it's a learning day for me. So allow me to just take notes.
We've talked about three principles: principle of averages, large number, and incentives. Which one do you use?
I use the almost all, but I've never implemented the incentives. That's why I'm taking the notes on the incentives. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Somebody else who wants to say something?
Maybe I can say something, PP, because I'll be logging off before 8 for another meeting. I don't know which principle this one, but I think it falls more on the incentives. I was putting up a building at home, and the gentleman who was architect, when it comes to Mjengo, there's a lot of, they want to be paid per day. But then I looked at it and I saw, hey, this per day thing, somebody can just come there and then the presence aspect you're talking about, and they do nothing, but that day is counted. So this guy advised me, let's do this project, just divide it into portions. Maybe there is for example, he told me a foundation up to the slab, that's one portion. Then the walling up to the lintel, that's another one. Just small portions. Then let this fundi or this contractor charge you per section. From this and this, I'm going to charge you this much. This and this, I'm going to charge you this much. This and this, I'm going to charge you this much. And it really worked, because then the agreement was, I will not pay you the amount for that section until you've done it and I have looked at it and I'm satisfied with the results. Then I'll pay you. The good thing about that I saw is that the thing is, after every section, there's nothing binding me with you. It's like each is a small project on its own. I finish with this project, I feel you've not done very well, I can easily hop it and get another person, because there's nothing binding us. It was not like you're charging me for the whole building. And I saw that really working. So that one pushed the guy and his team to work, of course, to put more extra effort because they wanted to be paid, but also ensure that quality is delivered, because I had only to pay after I had checked that they have completed. So I don't know which law that one is.
Yes, that's reward based on output, and it's worked for me as well wonderfully. You know, people, when I was also doing construction, people wanted this per day thing. And I have a friend who was doing per day, by the way, and this is what happened to him. These people would come, you know, when you go to the village and you're building, it can be tricky. People would come and they wait for breakfast. You give them breakfast, briefly afterwards, they are waiting for lunch, and they say, we cannot work in empty stomach. By the end of the day, he had to still start by also giving them some incentives so that they can finish some daily tasks, which I found very much weird. I did exactly what you did. We agree, let's do foundation. Foundation, this is the plan, this is the way it should be. So what is the cost? I go look for material, you charge me for labor and everything, and I pay you that in installments as you progress, with the final pay being that you've done it up to where we agreed. And that's the way it works, and people will always try to be efficient enough to be able to deliver. The other way, and more so in construction, it doesn't work. Whether it's in sales, wherever it is, it just won't work, and you will lose money, you lose lots of time and other resources. And so that is what we are calling reward incentives, or whichever the reward are going to be based on productivity rather than presence. And that's the way it should be in leadership. Thank you very much, Murithi. Yes, somebody else. Melvin, I know this is something you interact with every day.
Hi, hi, Otieno, Paul Peter.
Hi.
I'm just wondering, I've just joined in. So what did you discuss from the book today? Which principle?
Thank you very much. We've discussed three things.
Yeah.
The principle of averages, the principle of large numbers, and incentives. John, did you raise up your hand? Or that's before?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Yes, I did. Yeah.
You want to say something?
I was talking when you were talking about incentives. I just wanted to ask, maybe to clarify. In today's discussion, when we're talking about incentives, we're not looking at the issues like the carrot and stick approach. And also, I'm in the construction industry, and even as you say, sometimes the numbers and the incentives work, but then again, there are different sides to it. Sometimes the incentives work well, especially if you deal with people who know the work very well. Because, for example, you find if somebody is a layperson and you're doing construction, for example, and you want to work with incentives, sometimes it can also work against you, because you'd find that these people really are hell-bent on meeting their targets compared to quality. So again, you also have to be very careful in terms of using this approach where you have you don't have a lot of information. If somebody is not skilled and maybe you don't know how to check, you would find that even the class of concrete or the quality of the casting or the quality of the walling might not be properly. And as one of the participants said, that you pay after you have confirmed or you're satisfied with the work. So again, it calls for you to be a little, to understand more of what targets or what milestones you had asked the team to meet and to deliver. So in terms of incentives versus the large numbers, again, sometimes it requires more than just the ordinary or the normal knowledge that requires you to know more for you to even accept that the incentives issues. Thank you.
Thank you very much for raising this up. By the way, let me tell you, for example, in construction, what I've done is, I also read this story about somebody was explaining the principle of success. He said there are only two things: dress up in red and work very hard. So they were using again the construction environment, and they were the idea was when you dress in red, the chief guy will be able to notice you, and seeing you very hard working, they will be able to recognize you and even promote you or something like that. Let me tell you how I worked with the incentive idea. I don't promise anything sometimes, but for dedication, somebody has been dedicated the whole time doing things, while others, I see them loitering. I'm not the one supervising, but because it's my construction, I am there. The person who should supervise them is there, but sometimes not very much focused. So at the end of the day, those people appreciate if you just give them some little token afterwards. I saw you are working very hard, take this. They are very excited, you see. So at times I tell them that if we manage to finish this, because sometimes they would come and ask me for lunch. I tell them, no, that we cannot do right now. We can only talk about that if we manage to finish this in good time. You see, sometimes I wanted things to be done earlier, like when it was raining. I want it to be done earlier so that we can find shelter and things like that. So, and the other thing we said about incentive is personalize them. As opposed to giving them generally, there is that place where you can give general incentive. Those who achieve this, we are going to give them this. And one thing I've learned is that would not work very well for every team member. So sometimes it is individualizing. You're talking to somebody, connecting privately. Remember, we said that every relationship should be personalized. You cannot make your relationship as a leader with somebody the same as another. Every relationship is unique on its own. So that type of relationship is what you want to encourage, and that is the environment where incentives can work miracles. Yes, Melvin.
Yeah, OPP, I'm a bit worried about the incentive of large numbers when dealing with professionals, in particular doctors, psychologists, and so on. Because if they have very large numbers of clients, they're going to spend even less time with you. And you know that at the heart of every clinical conversation is something called a history taking. And I'm a bit worried by at some of these very quick turnaround times of large numbers at what we call managed healthcare facilities. I don't want to mention names, but you know them. Okay. Who promise you heaven at a very low cost because they've got very large numbers turning around. The large numbers also lends itself to fraud. For example, you will find a doctor is doing very many cesarean sections, okay, when perhaps they're not indicated. So that's my worry. When you're dealing with a solopreneur, for example, what is it called, a contractor with very many projects, you have no clue where your raw materials are going. They might be going to another one of these projects if you're not on the ground all the time. So I'm worried.
Thank you. And I think that is a good concern. Now you make us clarify. You know, one of the principles I've ever learned is, for a leader, if the only tool you have in your toolbox is a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. And I've seen this literally, by the way. There are people who only have one tool, and they will apply it in every situation. There are people who only use incentives, and that is all they know. And by the end of the day, it collapses. I've seen it collapse a number of times. Now, every tool must be put in context. What do you want to achieve? And what is the scenario? What problem are you solving? You remember when we started this discussion a while back, we were talking about attributes or what makes up a leader in this context that you are becoming influential. What makes you have more influence? And character was one of them. Leading yourself, we started by discussing about being a leader to yourself. And you cannot become a leader to yourself and gain more influence if you are doing shoddy work. So leadership will not tolerate that. But now let me say where principle of large numbers work. We gave that example, you were not there, sorry, that if you remember these mathematics, that if 3 people can till a piece of land in 3 days, how many people do we need to till the same piece of land in 1 day? And you see, to your customer, it will be easy. It will be easy. It will be more exciting to realize that his or her piece of work is done in 1 day as opposed to 3 days. The idea is find more hands, let it be done faster, let's amaze our customers. You see, by the end of the day, we want to amaze our customers. And the other scenario is, I love giving this example. You see, when you pick, for example, you've talked about doctors, you see, a doctor can think about himself or herself as a solo. And this is why we were saying that doctors hardly come up with a medical center or a hospital, because they think of themselves as individuals. What if they expanded and incorporated teams so that they can work in large teams and they are able to do efficient work, as opposed to I've got to do it and earn all the money? So this is the example I wanted to give. Let's say I do plowing. I'm given 1 acre. I go do it in 10 days and it will be done well. I will earn my money. Let's say I'm given 20,000 and I'm happy. What if I got people to do it in 1 day and I only take 2,000 and 18 I give to other people who literally do the work, so that I can go look for more and do the same? So you realize that within 10 days, I will have made more money as opposed to just taking 20 days to. It's all about mathematics in management. And that is what we are talking about. Principle of large numbers must be applied in context. Principle of averages in context. So we must not use one tool in every scenario. We look for a tool that will work at a particular point, another tool that will be more useful in a particular scenario. That's what we are talking about. I don't know if that clarifies it a bit. And your hand is still up, Melvin.
It's clarified. Yeah, you can turn around the large numbers narrative so that it can be a good tool. I agree.
Hello? May I also say something?
Yes, Dr.
Yeah, I'm referring to what somebody said in the beginning, that there is there's a person living with a disability who has risen to the level of being the personal DJ of the head of state. And the Bible says that when you nurture your talent and you become so good at it, you will stand before kings. Because the kings will want your talent, they will need your talent. So it's upon us to discover our purpose through our talent. And when we nurture that talent to the best of our ability, the Bible also says that we should work in such a way that we're working not for men, but for God. So even if you have the nastiest employer, use that job opportunity to work to the best of your ability. Because the day you resign, those clients will follow you. They will ask, where is so-and-so? Apana, I really need to go to wherever she has gone, because the service she gave us when she was here was very satisfactory and beyond. So we need to work as for the Lord and not for men, and give glory to God in everything that we do. That's what the Bible says. There was this gentleman who came to fix our house, a middle-aged gentleman. I found him fixing my auntie's house when I went to visit her. The house was flooded because the person who had built her extension did it in a shoddy way. So when it rained, the house was flooded, and that's where she was supposed to get her money from the tenants, and the tenants were moving out. So he fixed everything to the best of his ability until it didn't drain. She had been calling fundis, and they were just doing a half job. And then whenever it would rain, the house would get flooded again. But he did the work to the best of his ability. And one thing he told me was that other fundis hate him because he does a very good job the first time. And their bread and butter, according to them, is doing the job shoddily and being called repeatedly. But I don't think that is the work ethic that we are supposed to have. Because in the long run, this guy, I think he gets much more money because people have come to know his work ethic. He will come with his whole family. He's training his sons in construction. They come and they do an excellent job. And then you never need to call him again. So he says that other fundis hate him because now he's known and because he does things properly the first time.
Thank you. Thank you. It should not just be the first time. It is the first time, every time. We say you do it the first time, every time. Every time you're going to do it, it is your first experience again. And I think that is fantastic. Well, yes.
Sorry,
John?
sorry, OPP.
Yes.
If I may just comment on what Ed has just said.
Yes.
I think it has also gotten to professionals, and especially I think our legal or the learned friends. They don't want to close files. And sometimes there has been an issue. A client maybe cannot agree on something, but sometimes, lawyers don't want the ADR. And also the moment they feel like you as a client, you want to agree, maybe on an out of court, you find that now delays start coming in or issues. So you find again that just the way Eda was saying, there are those who feel that they'll be getting money from this file. And I think it puts professionalism aside. And sometimes we say the lawyers and the judges are in the same WhatsApp group. So you find that this time maybe your lawyer won the case, they bring their fee note, you pay them. The next time I'm fighting with you, my lawyer probably gets an order from the court in my favor, I pay him. So it's a seesaw where you find that every time somebody is hurting. But I think, as we say, that if we are working for the good of the community and even for God, then sometimes we tend to put our professionalism. But I think with the kind of society we have, where it is so capitalist, people want to amass so much wealth, and people want to survive also, you find that sometimes professionalism is thrown out the window. Yes.
Thank you very much. Problem is, shortcuts don't work for long. And by the end of the day, you will know for whom you are. You cannot lie forever. That is an experience I've learned with very many people. I've seen it literally in business, by the way. I wish I had all the time to tell the stories. But you can only cheat for some time. And this is why we talk about sometimes what is the mission and what is the vision of your organization. Do you want to see it expand? Do you want to see it fizzle out? All will depend on how we make decisions, such little decisions about how we are going to handle our customers. And that's why, by the way, if you said that today, we have lots of lawyers struggling to get work, you see, and we have lots of medics also struggling. We have lots of professionals, even accountants and all these. because we are trying to focus on making money as opposed to solving problems. The principle that works is if you help enough people get what they want, you get everything you want. If you help nobody, by the end of the day, you get nothing. That's the way it works. And so our interest is, by the end of the day as leaders, is we want to enable more people to get help. We want to help enough people get what they want in order that we get whatever we want. And I love saying this, whenever you get to a company and you realize that liquidity, they have no money, they are retrenching, it means there are customers who are not being serviced, or there are customers who are not paying. Something like that. It always has to do with customers, and it always has to do with how we handle those customers, or how we usually handle them, or something like that. So by the end of the day, if we keep doing the right thing, we will get more customers coming in, and we will have enough to service and be able to remain afloat. Thank you very much, John. I see lots of people who joined in even for the first time. Halifa, welcome. Elizabeth, it's been a long while. Good to see you log in. Pierre Rose, and all the others. Let's wind up. Anybody with something burning, we should be able to wind up in the next 3 minutes or so. Something burning, somebody feeling left out. Somebody, I saw Maurice somewhere. Is Maurice in? Maurice, yes.
So thank you so much for this. Has been wonderful. I just wanted to comment on the second principle, the one on large numbers. And it's just a coincidence. I don't know whether you also picked this from the Galatians, the letter of Paul to the Galatians. And it's just a coincidence that yesterday I was reading it, and it's towards the end of it. It must be Galatians 3, maybe 9, somewhere there, when he talks about you reap what you sow. So if you sow something small, that is what you'll reap, and the vice versa. So I think that has worked for me, in the sense that when you put more effort on something, you succeed. If you don't succeed as much. And then the same Paul also goes ahead just around that section where he talks about perseverance. And this also relates to what Dr. Ida was talking about earlier, that sometimes in our lives we need to persevere, and success will come in later. So as the leader, we need to invest in what we are doing. We need to try as much as possible to do whatever we're doing to our best, organize our teams very well. And in fact, for me, I'd use, instead of just saying amazing our clients or customers, use the term delight. So delight them in the sense that they're not only amazed by how quickly you have done something, but they're also happy with what has come out of it. So like I think the somebody who mentioned earlier that at the end of it, it's not just a matter of doing something quickly, but also reaching the standards which are required. So that is what I wanted to contribute to the discussion today, and to thank you so much for keeping the fire burning. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Melvin. We want to say something, we close?
Yeah, just a quick one. It's just that society has, and professionals in particular, have lost integrity. Now, in colonial times, we used to have a guy called a clerk of works on every construction project, and he would make the fundis of that era tear down a whole wall and redo it. Now, I've seen many contractors among us here. How many times do we do that? So the person who is supervising the project must have some integrity. And I think it's a societal problem, which as leaders, we need to inculcate by demanding it of those people whom we contract, and doing the same to those people who contract us. For example, lawyers should give one the option of alternative mediation, and so on. So that's what I have to say.
Thank you very much. It's true, and we say that if things are going wrong, most times it is the leader. Yes, and we've got to look at the leader, and that's why as leaders we've got to develop our capacity in order to be able to get the results that we want. the results that should be arrived at. Thank you all. Elsie, you didn't say anything except before the meeting. You can say something and close for us. Maybe you give us blessings as well.
I've said something, but for me, it's more of the law of the average. It's more the sentence, in order to increase your results, you may want to increase your processes. And that just means stretching from within. If you're going to overcome that tendency to be average, you need to stretch from within. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody. We've got to end it there. It's been wonderful. Next, we are going to finish those principles. I think so. They are probably around 2 or 3 remaining. And then we will be done with it. We go to the next level. Thanks everyone for coming in. And we do this every Monday from 7:30 to 8:15. Otherwise, you can always log in earlier by 7 and then we network. You need to be knowing more people and networking. Thanks, Halifa, for your comment. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Liz. Thanks. And let's have a beautiful week ahead and a fantastic Monday. See you blessed.